Hey everybody, welcome back to the program. Today we're going to be talking about The Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. I mean, it's an album that really needs no introduction. It's one of the greatest albums ever made. The cover is iconic and the music is fantastic. But what is there left to say about this album that hasn't already been said? I don't know, but we're going to find out on today's program because we're going to figure out what makes The Dark Side of the Moon so great. Today's episode is brought to you by Magic Spoon. Man, eating cereal as a kid was such a blast, but as I got older, I started to realize how much sugar is in it, and I had to cut it out. But even today, I still get cravings, and that's what's so great about Magic Spoon. They basically reinvented your favorite childhood cereals with 0 grams of sugar, plus each flavor provides 13 to 14 grams of protein, which is perfect for me since I'm always looking to get variety in my diet while at the same time hitting my protein goals. My favorite flavor is fruity, and it's amazing how good this tastes. You're not gonna believe it. But they also have other great flavors, including cocoa, peanut butter, frosted, and many more. So click the link below to grab a variety pack of Magic Spoon cereal and try it for yourself today. Be sure to use the promo code Vinyl Rewind at checkout to get $5 off any order. Or go to magicspoon.com/Vinyl Rewind. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed by a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. So click the link below or scan the QR code on the screen and use the code Vinyl Rewind for $5 off, or go to magicspoon.com/Vinyl Rewind to save $5 today. So what is it about this album that sets it apart from everything else? I mean, it's easy just to agree and say, yes, it's one of the greatest records ever made, but why? Why is it? And to be honest, I don't really know. I mean, I don't know what makes great works of art so great necessarily. I can point out technical details and talk about the meaning of the songs or how it was constructed. I can do a lot of research, but in the end, I think for every great piece of art, whether it be like music, photography, film, paintings, there's a quality that you can't quite explain. But if a piece can elicit something, a feeling, a mood out of the observer, I think that helps to determine what makes it so great. And I think that's where we can find an answer. But before we can talk about that, I think it's important to know that leading up to the making of this record, the band was in a very interesting time of their lives. There was this general feeling of what's next. They accomplished a lot already, but they were getting older, starting families, and thinking more about life and death and all what that means, right? And so with all that, Roger Waters wanted to pull the band back from what he called their space rock sound to more concrete themes of fears and anxieties within their lyrics. Musically, they didn't necessarily stick to traditional songwriting structure, but instead weave the more avant-garde or the more classical styles into their music. But it's not just art for art's sake. They crafted some well-made songs here with some excellent singles. They have a great sense of melody and catchy hooks while at the same time infusing the music with recurring themes and motifs. And I think through all of that, they created a suite of music that is not only beautiful, but incredibly relatable and speaks to everyone. And with all that said, let's break this album down, starting with Speak to Me. So I see this song as the overture for the album because it teases several of the melodies that we'll experience later. Starting with the heartbeats, they suggest a closeness, confiding in someone, as do the spoken word sections. However, they are about going crazy, which is not something you usually tell a stranger. So right away we have this vulnerability present, which I think sets the tone for the rest of the album. I also see this section as the start of a dark ride in an amusement park. It's the transition from your normal everyday world to the world of the record. And maybe there's a little bit of a drop as we crescendo into the next song, Breathe. Now this track acts as a lovely soft pillow to cushion your fall into the album. It's like we fell into the rabbit hole and now we're sort of just like floating in the air. The gentle slide guitar and the lumbering bass reinforces the floaty feeling. Lyrically, I think this song is about taking a moment to appreciate life. It's easy to get caught up in work and responsibilities, but this song reminds us that it's our experiences and relationships that really make up our lives. The song ends with a warning that if we get too caught up in work or material pursuits, will essentially end up dying young. This segues into On the Run, which is like a return to reality or waking up from a dream and having to deal with the real world again. I think this song was inspired by the stress of traveling. The band was certainly feeling that as they were doing a lot of that. Their touring schedule was really hectic during this time. Near the start of the song, you can hear some sort of announcement going on, like an airport or train station. That, along with the feeling of the music and the title, just feels like a rush, like you're in a hurry to catch your flight or train. But I think this song could also be asking the question, where are you going? But it doesn't try to answer it. That's for you to decide. Then we have another seamless transition to track 4, Time.
Moments that make up a dull day.
The intro of the chiming clocks really drives home the theme of this song. It's a wake-up call, an alarm clock for your life. It's saying your life is passing by now. Make the most of it because it can go by in an instant if you're not paying attention. There's also a stateliness to the opening drum hits by Nick Mason. It's like the undaunted march of time, like nothing can stop it. This song touches on some of the same themes as Breathe, with the idea of making the most of your life. But I think this song also tackles the concept of mortality more directly. The first section describes being young with nothing but time on your hands, but in the second half, it describes how that aimless approach to life can backfire. And this line so perfectly illustrates that. When we return to the second verse, there's a realization that it's too late, that you can't get those years back. And the last chorus is about how time is fleeting, and as you get older, years go by quicker. Towards the end, the song transitions into a reprise of Breathe with new lyrics. They're tinged with a bit of nostalgia, singing about how good it feels to be back home, but there's also this sense of impending doom, like that feeling you get right before something bad happens. And this brings us to the great gig in the sky. Now, for the longest time, I always assumed this was about the afterlife or heaven, but looking at it within the context of the album, it's placed at the end of side 1, so that doesn't really make sense to me. Instead, I see this song as more of a midlife crisis. Basically, it's evaluating where you are in life. So for me, this song is about thinking about your own mortality and how do you cope with that? This song is just incredible. I don't know how else to describe it. It has to be heard. Yeah, for me, what a way to close side 1. Just this burst of music and then this sort of gentle receding, which leads us to the second side. And we're going to kick things off with Money. Lyrically, I think this song is about greed. I think for a lot of people, achieving wealth is a big part of their lives, and there's nothing wrong with that per se, but I think when it turns into greed, that becomes a problem. The song starts off by saying, get a good job with good pay and you'll be all right, but then it doesn't end there. You have to want a better job with better pay, and then you get caught up in materialistic things. Of course, the band takes the perspective of a very high income earner, like the people who can buy a football team. The second verse goes into more specifically greed in the sense that, don't give me a hard time for not wanting to give back. When we get to the third verse, there's the idea that money is a crime, which to me makes me think of money as being the root of all evil. But in this sense, I think they mean greed is a crime. Basically, here's somebody who wants a Learjet, who can buy a football team, while there are people who can barely afford food for the week. And it's that inequality that should be a crime, is what the song is saying. So it's less about actual money and more to do with greed as a part of human nature. Then we have another seamless transition to Us and Them. It's one of my favorite songs on here, but even the tender vocals from David can't hide the bleakness of the lyrics. On the surface, this song is about war and just the senselessness of it. It never really accomplishes anything. We're all fighting for the same things, and generally the people who are doing the fighting aren't the ones who really benefit from the outcomes of war, and they also suffer the most. But it's the last bit of the song that questions, what is this all about? What are we fighting for? And I think the closing statement of the song is that we're too concerned with our own wants to try to solve our differences. We just want our simple pleasures like tea and cake. We're too distracted with our lives to really understand that the elites and their greed is the root of our problems. Us and them is the have-nots and the haves. Moving on to Any Color You Like, we have a bluesy instrumental jam that just hits the right spot on the record. Thematically, if we look at the title, I think this song is saying you are in charge of your life. You have some control over what you want your life to be. To me, this song is saying that with any great realization, there's that moment where you take a breath and you let it wash over you, sort of like taking the vastness of the options in your life. It has a heaviness to it as well that eventually gives way to the softness of Brain Damage.
The lunatic is on the grass.
Musically, this song has a manic feeling. There's like this vast contrast between the gentle verses and the more grandiose gospel-like choruses. It has this quality of flying through the air, gliding and then diving. But when you combine this with the title of Brain Damage, the music does a great job of conveying the madness that can go on in our heads. And it's hard to ignore the fact that Syd Barrett really lost his mind in real life. I think this song is addressing the scariness of mental health and how it can affect anyone. It's an illness that you can't always see on the outside, and it can make you feel helpless when someone close to you is suffering. And I think this song is also asking, can this happen to me? Can I fall and essentially get trapped by my own mind? I mean, it's a scary thought, which blends seamlessly into the final song, Eclipse. Now, musically, there isn't much that separates this from the last song. It really feels like a continuation, but I still absolutely love it. And the way that it's sung by Roger, it feels like a prayer, the way he starts off each line with the same 3 words. And I think it's just a brilliant way to end the album because it's sort of like this realization that no matter what you do, nothing really matters because even the sun gets eclipsed by the moon. And I think that's the big takeaway from this record. We can agonize over the meaning of life, but maybe don't spend so much time thinking about it because you'll miss out on all these other things. I don't think the band is saying that life is meaningless, but I think the meaning comes from what you make of your life. So for the majority of us, it doesn't really matter what we decide to do because most of us aren't going to change the world, but I don't think that's a terrible thing. I think it's just the reality of life, and in many ways, it's actually liberating. In the end, I think what this song is saying is that what's really important is that we matter to those we are close to. The album comes full circle with the return of the heartbeats from the beginning, and the fact that the album ends with the statement, there is no dark side of the moon, it's all dark as a matter of fact. This is just brilliant. It ties it back to the theme of the album, the dark side of the moon. This is the side that we don't talk about, the side we don't see, the idea of mental health, going crazy, and the fact that we can't always see when someone is depressed or has anxiety. But it's still a part of us, and if we don't address it, it will continue to control our lives. But if we look inward, be honest with ourselves, that's where our true colors lie. And it's the relationships with our friends and family that brings the light into our world. I mean, that's how I see the album cover, honestly. In the end, what Pink Floyd and Alan Parsons created wasn't just an album, but a suite of music, one that is meant to be listened to from beginning to end. It's a complete statement from the band that reflects where they were at this time in their lives. What they tapped into was the human experience, and to be able to express that through music and lyrics in a cohesive way is incredibly powerful. Not only did these individual songs touch on these very universal fears and emotional states and phases in life, but the way they are weaved together is a narrative. It feels very much like a truncated version of life. Pink Floyd somehow created this masterpiece by looking inward, being honest, and in return presenting that honesty in a way that is poetic, musically interesting, and truthful without coming off as saccharine, disingenuous, or obvious. It's the combo of brilliant songwriting, very poignant lyrics, and universal themes that continue to resonate with listeners today. It has this appeal that speaks to people from all different backgrounds at all different ages. No matter where you are, no matter what you're going through, you'll gain something from this album every time you listen to it because it works at every stage of life. It also deals with the fact that we are human and we make mistakes and we're not perfect and we get caught up in little things that don't matter. We're fragile and in the end we die. So no matter what, that's it. That's life. But this music provides some comfort in the fact that you're not alone. Other people deal with this stuff too, and you are heard. And it's hard to think of another record, especially from this time period, that really tackles these issues in the way that Dark Side does, and so succinctly as well. It's just a beautiful piece of art that is incredibly put together, well thought out, well sequenced. It's a masterpiece, and I think it deserves all the praise that it gets. I really do. And that's why The Dark Side of the Moon is so great. All right, everyone, that will do it for today. This review was a long time in the making. I originally talked about this album on the channel back in 2013, and I always wanted to revisit it and give it a proper review. So thank you so much for your patience. But I really want to know what you have to say. what makes this album so great for you. And if you don't like it, I want to know why. Until then, thank you all so much for watching, but I especially want to thank my members over on Patreon. Their continued support really keeps this channel going. If you have the means, consider becoming a member as well. Until then, I'm your Vinyl Geek, and I'll catch you on the flip side.